Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg in Jerusalem with All Israel News, and we're doing a very special interview today with a dear friend of mine who is somebody that most of our viewers, particularly in Israel, in the Arab Muslim world, are not going to have heard of. But many Christians have not heard of him also because he has a very special role in which millions have heard of him, but maybe not in the Christian community in America and more broadly in the Jewish world or the Arab world. So my guest today is Dr. Hormoz Shariat. Dr. Hormoz, what a joy to be with you. You're in Dallas, I believe. I'm in Jerusalem. Welcome to All Israel News.
Oh, thank you so much, Joel, for allowing me to share what God is doing.
Well, you have been a friend of mine for almost 15 years, maybe a little bit longer even. And for many of those years, I have been urging you to write a book. And I have very little influence, clearly, because it took you a long time to do it. But as of September 1st, your book came out, and I have already bought my copy, though I had read your advance proof. And of course, I not only endorsed, but wrote the foreword to it. So I really am grateful for the chance to tell people a little bit about who you are, and we can talk a little bit about your journey. And it's a story that most people haven't heard, but they absolutely need to read. So first of all, just thank you.
Well, thank you. I was born as a Muslim in Iran, pretty devout in my early years. And I was on the streets of Tehran in 79, shouting death to America. I wanted a change of regime. I wanted Shah out. But in my heart, I loved America and still do. And I, of course, more. But I wanted to come to U.S. and get my PhD. So around the time,
so I always think that's kind of funny and odd. There you are, you, your wife, and 2 million other people saying death to America. And then you thought, well, maybe not quite yet. I'd like to go to graduate school over there in America. And of course, the State Department gave you a visa and you came to Southern California.
That's right. That's where I got my PhD in artificial intelligence. And as I was studying, I got interested in the spiritual thing. I compared Islam and Christianity. I read the Bible and Quran, compared it, and I realized they do not match. So I went through a few months of questioning, and at the end, I realized that Jesus is the way. His message is simple, and it's life transforming. And my life was transformed. And when my life was changed so dramatically, I said, wow, this is powerful. I should not keep it to myself. I'm selfish if I keep it to myself. I got to share with others. I started sharing with other Iranian Muslims, and their lives were changed. So that's where the ministry was launched.
Well, what's interesting is, so again, for people who don't know your story, Hormoz Shariat goes on in time. God leads him to not only plant a congregation of Iranians who come to faith in Jesus Christ, in the San Jose area, but then to train and equip other Iranian people who've come to Christ. But then eventually, after 9/11, he begins a satellite television program that eventually turns into a satellite television network. A few years ago, it moved to Dallas. It's now a 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year satellite television network, broadcasting Bible teaching, worship, interviews, and gospel teaching in Farsi, the language of Iran, not just into the country of Iran, but to Iranian Farsi speakers all over the region, including in Afghanistan and other places. That's an extraordinary thing. You did not have a background in television, in broadcasting, and of course you weren't raised as a Southern Baptist or a Presbyterian. You were raised as a Shia Muslim. This is a fascinating thing, and it's why I described you, including on the cover of the book, as the Billy Graham of Iran.
Oh man, that things happened and launched me into that. I was like an introvert, a nerd engineer type, but when I got saved by the Lord, things changed in my heart. And one event happened. When I was a new believer in the Lord, they arrested my 16-year-old brother and on minor political charges. They kept him for 2 years, then they executed him. I remember those days I had such a crisis of faith, asking God, what is this? What do I need to do? And
so you were in California at this point, and he was back in Iran.
That's correct. And I felt God is saying, yeah, don't hate those people who killed your brother, the Islamic government. And you are called to love people, even love your enemies, love Muslims. And what you can do is, the best thing you can do is to share the gospel with Muslims with love. So that day I committed my life, said, God, I will share the gospel with Muslims the rest of my life. Would you use my lifetime to bring 1 million Muslims to Christ? I did not know how it's going to happen. I just said, God, would you use it? Satellite was out of question at that time. But since the satellite television started, I think there are more than 1 million have heard the gospel. God knows how many of them have come to Christ.
Well, this is one of the fascinating things about your story. And then you lay it out. Why don't you show us your book called Iran's Great Awakening? I see it behind you. You want to just hold up a copy?
Yeah.
Iran's Great Awakening is an extraordinary story. And again, I want to encourage our readers and our viewers to get a copy. You can get it at Amazon, Iran's Great Awakening by Hormoz Shariat. So as people unpack the story, what they're going to find is that it's actually illegal in Iran to own a satellite dish. But because it's illegal and Iranians are so much against and opposed to their government, they just say, all right, if government says it's illegal, I'm going to get one. In part, I think this, as you taught me, this is a craving, a hunger for outside information, for news, information, just sports, anything that's not state-run television. Talk to me about the power of satellite television, and why is your Bible-centered teaching drawing millions of people in a country where Christianity is essentially illegal?
Well, it's a work of God. God has opened the hearts and minds of Iranians. For a Muslim start thinking, questioning, comparing, that's very unusual. Muslims are not allowed to do that. But something has happened in Iran, of course, happened over the 40 years of Islamic rule. People woke up. What is this that I believe? Why our lives are like this? So Iranians at this point are questioning Islam. They're looking, and they're finding out that Islam does not relate to their personal life, has not done anything for their own lives, for their marriages, for the families, and even for the country. The country is in trouble in every way, socially, politically, financially. So people of Iran are looking. Now here...
But the regime, beginning with the Islamic Revolution in 1979, that you were encouraging, welcoming, this was the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He really was making the case that Shia Islam was the answer to Iran's problems.
Yeah, and Iranians believed it for the first few years. In the 80s, they were ready to die for Islam, and many of them died in the Iran-Iraq war. But there was a gradual spiritual journey to coming to the point that they are saying Islam is not the answer, Islam is our problem. So they're very open to everything except Islam, many of them. They're looking to atheism, to Eastern religion, everything. Well, of course, Christianity is very attractive because it talks about love, it talks about forgiveness, which Iranians by nature, by culture, they're attracted to that. So that's why we see a large harvest in Iran. Number one, because they're questioning. Number two, because they're looking for a true God who is loving and forgiving, who can touch their lives in a personal way. We see a great harvest of souls in Iran.
Now, one of the things that's intriguing to me, and in the short time that we have for this particular interview, I want to focus on is when Iranian Shias come to faith in Jesus Christ, and your estimate is that there's well over 1 million converts, not necessarily only through your ministry. There are a number of ministries, and God is working sovereignly in many, many ways. But actually, you believe there's several million Iranian followers of Jesus now, when there was only known to be 500 Shia background evangelical born-again Christians back in 1979. So that's extraordinary. We obviously can't know the precise numbers, but the magnitude is becoming more and more known. But your argument is, and your experience is, that when a Shia Iranian comes to faith in Jesus, if they do, that their heart and attitudes towards Jews, Arabs, and even the state of Israel begins to change. Would you take just a few moments and talk about what you've seen in that respect?
I've seen so much the life change. Of course, it's a Jesus work. He changes our life. He talks about love. Both Old Testament and New Testament talks about love God with all your heart and all your mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So it's a faith based on love. So it's natural. They come to Christ and they start questioning, why should I hate the Jews, by the way? And even Muslims in Iran are asking that question. Muslims who are protesting on the streets, they're saying, death to Israel. The government saying death to Israel. They're saying, why should I say death to Israel? What have they done to me? You are my enemy. You have done so harm to my life more than Israel has ever done. So, but when they come to Christ, their heart towards Israel, toward the Jews, change. And it changes because they read the Bible. It changes because Jesus calls us to love all people. So it's a natural thing of salvation that they change. They start loving Israel in a special way because it's in the Bible. But an amazing thing is Iranian Muslims, I'm talking about Muslims, they hate Arabs also. Why? Because they say it was Arabs who invaded our country, who forced Islam on us, who brought the great civilization that we were to this point, that even families, members hate each other. So they blame Arabs for the place they are, for the problems. And that's why they hate them. The great thing is when they come to Christ, their hearts towards Arabs are changed. Iranian Christians love Arabs. Iranian Muslims hate Arabs. So that's the transformation power of Jesus Christ.
And towards the state of Israel, like one of the things that's interesting to me is well, first of all, you became a friend of mine, and I'm a Jewish follower of Jesus. So and you wanted me for several years to come onto your network and be interviewed by you. And I said, listen, I don't want to cause you problems. I mean, you get accused of being a Zionist, someone who believes that God has a plan and purpose for Israel and the Jewish people to live here in the Holy Land and have a state and sovereignty and all. And you get accused of that anyway. Do you really want to have a guy named Rosenberg, who is a Zionist and a follower of Jesus, on your network? Won't that cause you a problem? But you were persistent. Eventually, you've had me on now several times, and you even came to Israel to speak at one of the conferences I did a few years ago. Why did you come to Israel, and what was your experience here, even though it was short, and we need to bring you back?
Well, it's any Christian, I think, who comes to Jerusalem, they have a spiritual experience. There is something there about not just the history, just the presence of God there. My life was changed and touched deeply, and I thank you for allowing me to attend the conference. And one day we did one day tour I wasn't there too long, so I appreciate that. One day tour of Jerusalem. And
by the way, folks, that was his decision, not mine. I wanted him to stay, but he has a network to run, and so therefore he could only come for a brief period.
Well, I appreciate that. You arranged a tour for me, and it was because it was short, just one-on-one. I hired somebody to show me around one day, and that person was an Iranian Christian Jew by accident, by God's provision. We spoke Farsi all day, talk about the Lord, talk about Israel and all that.
But as I recall, his mom still lives in Israel and wanted you to call her, right?
Yeah, I was shocked. We talked about faith, and he didn't tell me about his mom until at lunchtime. We sit down and eat. He said, by the way, my mom did not immigrate to Israel. She decided to stay in Iran, loves Iran. She's in Kermanshah, one of the cities in Iran. But she watches you. She watches your program all day. She loves you. She loves you. Would you talk to her? I said, of course. And during lunchtime, he calls her mom, his mom, and we talk. And wonderful lady. What a faith in Jesus Christ. Isn't it amazing? An Iranian Jewish Christian in Jerusalem, an Iranian Christian woman inside Iran, loving Israel and loving Jesus. And we connected.
Well, what a great story. And I want to encourage you all to read a great book. Iran's Great Awakening talks about Hormoz's personal journey from Iran to the United States, along with his wife. He met his wife in Iran, though she's American born. She had converted to Shia Islam, as I understand it, right?
Yes.
And she was living there, and you guys were there. And that story of the move from Iran to the United States, the spiritual journey, the marriage journey. You guys were having a lot of problems. Were really scheduled to have lawyers help you get a divorce, and then Christ really dramatically intervened. And then what has happened since? It's an amazing story. I appreciate your friendship, and I encourage everyone to go to Amazon and pick up a copy of Iran's Great Awakening. We don't want to tell you the whole story because then you won't read it, but I think you get a taste of it. And again, why do I call Hormoz the Billy Graham of Iran? I'll just close with that point. And that is because Billy Graham was the greatest evangelist of the 20th century, arguably the greatest, certainly the most influential. You'd have to go back to the Apostle Paul. Spoke to more than 200 million people face to face, teaching the Bible and sharing the love of Christ and how to know Christ personally. But he was never allowed to go into Iran. And Billy Graham in his heyday would speak in stadiums all over the world, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000. Once in South Korea, he spoke to 1 million people in one day at a huge event. But he was never allowed to go teach the Bible and share his faith in Christ in the Islamic Republic of Iran, or even prior to that, before it became the Islamic Republic, back when the Shah was in charge. And Hormoz can't go either because he would be arrested and executed. But through the miracle of satellite television technology, his Bible teaching goes right over the heads of the Iranian regime, right over the clerics, right into the homes via satellite television of every Iranian that has a satellite dish. And he has a chance to speak to them as well as the other teachers and Christians that are on the network, to speak to them directly in the privacy of their own homes. And that is something that Billy Graham never had a chance to do. So Hormoz, thank you from a Jewish Israeli who loves Jesus to an Iranian Muslim background, Shia Muslim background, follower of Jesus in Dallas. Thank you for being on the show. And as we've discussed in the past, once Iran opens, I want to be on the first plane with you into a liberated Iran. Let's pray for that day.
We will see that day. It's coming soon. The government of Iran is unstable, and it could come sooner than we think.
I hope so. The people of Iran need to be liberated. They need a great awakening. I'm Joel Rosenberg in Jerusalem. For All Israel News, thank you for joining us.